Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke will kick off day one of his semi-annual testimony on the economy before the Senate Banking Committee at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's the first leg of this today. Bernanke is expected to express concern about recent data and continued high unemployment, but stop short perhaps of providing a timetable on further Fed easing. Joining us now for more is Bob McTeer, former Dallas Fed Bank president, currently a fellow at the National Center for Policy Analysis, also a CNBC contributor. So good morning. And Bob, what do you expect to hear from the chairman today?
Just about what you said. I don't think he's going to announce any new programs, but he will give a comprehensive review of the economy. And unfortunately, he's going to be describing an economy that has gotten weaker over the last several weeks and months. And at the same time, the inflation rate has come down further. So in the context of the dual mandate, it seems like he's getting closer to the circumstances where some sort of additional easing will be needed. However, I doubt that it would be announced in testimony. They will wait, I think,
Certainly,
if they're going to do it at an FOMC meeting.
Bob, a lot of people were focused on that retail sales figure that we got yesterday. We've now seen a 3-month span of declines. It typically happens around the time that the economy is falling into recession. Second quarter growth projections have been taken down below 1% in some cases. Just how troubled are you about the situation the U.S. is presently in?
Pretty much. You know, the last two GDP numbers were very weak. The 3% GDP number in the fourth quarter was only 1.1 if you take out inventory accumulation. So we've already had 2 quarters of GDP that's really below 2%. And if this one comes in below 1% or even below 2%, it'll be 3 in a row. And we've also had 3 bad employment months in a row, in addition to the 3 retail sales months in a row. So it's accumulating.
How much more accumulative data do we need, Bob, before we get further action then?
Well, I don't know to the extent that they count what they did in extending Operation Twist to be meaningful. We have that. However, by definition, that is sterilized and does not add to the assets of the Fed's balance sheet. I think the most important thing for the Fed to do is to make sure that those assets don't shrink. There's been no real net growth in Fed assets over the past year. Operation Twist didn't cause it to grow, and we want the money supply. It's finally gotten to growing after a long time where it didn't. We want the money supply to gradually increase. We want bank lending to continue to pick up. And that's what quantitative easing could do. People who say you don't need quantitative easing because interest rates are already very low are just looking at one aspect of monetary policy, interest rates. I was brought up on Milton Friedman economics, and the money supply to me is the most important part of monetary policy.
Yeah.
Andy?
Yeah, Bob, it's Andy Brough here. Don't you think we just need a complete kind of rethink? So rather than sort of spending all this money in America on welfare, et cetera, we'd be better off sort of pouring it into infrastructure. And, you know, I hear what you say about Milton Friedman, but, you know, surely now it doesn't seem to me that quantitative easing is working, and maybe we need to get back to old-fashioned sort of Keynesian economics where we're actually paying people to build a road, et cetera, and redoing the infrastructure and saying, right, okay, let's try and get the multiplier effect working that way, and maybe that is the way to increase the money supply.
Well, I think you're right that the problem with the recession is aggregate demand, and we do have infrastructure needs. It's cheap for governments to borrow right now. The dilemma we have is that what we need to do to stimulate the economy will make our fiscal situation worse, and what we do for the fiscal situation will weaken the economy. So it's a delicate balancing act. We need to put fiscal measures in place, and we need to put entitlement reforms in place that will work over the next several years, rather than have much, we don't need any austerity right now. It'll tip us into a recession.
If I'm investing in a company, I want to be investing in a company which is capable of growing its top line, so it's generating a level of profitability in cash, which is then enable me to reduce their debts and give me a bigger dividend. It seems to me, at least the US government is trying to sort of grow its top line, grow its tax revenue, while everywhere else tax revenues are falling and just making the debt position worse. I'm just asking whether you think the way they're growing it or trying to grow it is actually going to achieve it, or just run into a wall slightly later than the European economies.
Well, I don't think our politicians and fiscal authorities are doing very much. We have the fiscal cliff looming at the end of the year, as you know, where we're going to get automatic arbitrary spending cuts, and we're going to have a massive tax increase if they don't do something to modify and moderate that. It's brinksmanship. It's playing chicken.
Yeah, it certainly is.
It's not a good way at all to conduct policy.
All right, that's Bob McTeer, former Dallas Fed Bank president. Appreciate all of your thoughts on that this morning.